As Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz said, there's no place like home. Home City, Kansas may be a small, unincorporated town now, but it was once described as the biggest little city. Home City was settled by immigrants that came from the eastern United States. The town was first called Dover in 1882, but then changed to Home because the post office had always been housed in a home from the beginning of mail service in 1874. George W. Van Camp purchased 40 acres of land for $700 from Chris Duber on June 8, 1884, to build the town on. Mr. Van Camp had the idea of adding city to home to make it officially Home City, Kansas. Home City was one of the richest settlements in Marshall County and one of the most enterprising farm trade towns. Numerous buildings were being embedded all over the Home City landscape. The first voting poll in 1869 was located in a rock building in Franklin Township before Home City was even platted. The first schoolhouse serving the town in a rural area was built in 1871. A bigger schoolhouse was then built in 1884. G. W. Van Camp and Hugh McMorran had the first lumber yard built in June of 1883. The first general store was opened by Mr. and Mrs. J. B. Wooster in 1884. In 1894, the first telephone switchboard was then set up in the general store. Mr. Wooster was also the organizer of the first bank, which he opened on May 9, 1904. The citizens of Home City desired to have a church building. Therefore, the Friedens Lutheran Church was built in 1885 with 25 charter members. Shortly following, in 1891, was the first Methodist church that stood a block west of the Lutheran Church, located on Highway 36. The Methodist Church served members for over 50 years until 1935. The Lutheran Church stopped holding services around 2005, but still stands tall today. The first 2 cars full of 550 bushels of corn were shipped out of Home City in 1883 by Joseph Hildebrandt. In 1885, John Thomas built Home City's first elevator powered by a 3-horse tread power. Later, this would be replaced with steam power. Grain during this time was not delivered by trucks, but by wagon. In 1903, Thomas sold the elevator to the Farmers Union, and later its manager, R.J. Lewis, purchased it in 1905. Roy Lewis, his son, continued to own and operate it until 1944, when Roy sold it to the Continental Grain Company. At the turn of the century, more grain was shipped from Home City than any other town in the county. The first hotel and livery barn was built in 1884 and owned by Colonel Jacob Beveridge. Meals were served family style and all you can eat for only 25 cents. The first meat market opened in May of 1880. A small truck wagon of meat packed in ice traveled through the neighborhood. This was the first delivery service in Marshall County. This wasn't the only first in Marshall County. Mr. F.S. Biberstein advertised the only steam shop to run equipment in his blacksmith shop, built in 1883. As more people began to settle in Home City, the need for news to be reported was more urgent. The Home City Bee published their first newspaper on April 21, 1894. 16 businesses had advertisements that appeared in its columns. The first rural mail service began on September 1, 1900. At that time, many of the farmers were not interested in rural mail service because they were in the habit of going to town to socialize with friends. Despite the prosperous outlook of Home City, tragedy struck on May 5, 1905. It all started at 10 p.m. at the Crane Livery Barn when a load of hay caught fire. The fire spread quickly and covered almost the whole town in a matter of minutes due to the strong wind. The fire was much too powerful to be put out in spite of the combined efforts of the citizens to put out the flames. The residents had enough time to get out of their houses, but not enough time to save any of their goods. The horses in the stables were all killed by the fire, and the barns were in ruins. Destroyed were the livery stable, Eakin's harness shop and residence, Neathan's meat market and residence, Edmondson's hardware, Moorbacher's residence and restaurant, Rounding's hardware and implement building, Coral Lemmer's lumber yard, John Lewis barn, and Turnall Hall. The only thing left standing was a brick jewelry store and the safe in the bank. It was estimated that over $70,000 was lost due to the fire. One person said, "Out of it will grow a new and better home city." Parts of the towns were rebuilt, and keeping up with the times, a waterworks system with a tower was constructed in later years. Although Home City is not like it used to be, it is still home to 128 citizens. There really is no place like home.